old fans crash out, lose their mind, and scream white privilege. It is hilarious watching these people melt down over the most minuscule things, over the smallest little things. Watching these folks melt down, go hysterical, lose their mind, rant, rave, complain. Oh my God, I can't believe.
Welcome back. WNBA fans, CaitlinClark is making headlines once again after reports of a massive $150 million Ferrari deal sparked major reactions throughout the basketball world. But the biggest question is how AjaWilson is responding to all the attention surrounding Clark. Could a deal of this size change the balance of power and spotlight in women's basketball? Today we're breaking down the story, the reactions, and why this could become such a significant moment. Social media is going wild over one of the biggest basketball stories being discussed right now. According to reports circulating online, CaitlinClark is connected to a potential $150 million Ferrari agreement, and the claim has quickly become a major topic of conversation. At the same time, fans are extremely interested in what AjaWilson might think about the situation. If Clark actually secured a contract of that magnitude with a multinational luxury company like Ferrari, it would represent a remarkable moment for both Clark and women's basketball. Clark has already established herself as one of the most recognizable figures in sports, both on and off the court. Her popularity reaches far beyond the WNBA, which is why almost every major endorsement rumor involving her creates such a strong reaction. But AjaWilson is also one of the league's most successful and respected athletes. Having both names connected to the same major conversation has naturally intensified the debate among fans. There are now rumors surrounding a potential partnership between CaitlinClark and Ferrari, with some online estimates placing its value at an astonishing $150 million. But how much of that figure is actually verified, and how much is simply speculation spreading across social media? That distinction matters. Viral headlines can make an unconfirmed story sound official before reliable details are available. At the same time, the conversation surrounding AjaWilson and the possible impact of such a deal has become almost as interesting as the deal itself. Clark is already one of the biggest commercial names in basketball, so it isn't surprising that major endorsement rumors involving her attract enormous attention. The bigger questions are obvious. What exactly could Clark's relationship with Ferrari look like? Is a $150 million agreement actually possible? And why does every major Clark business story create such a massive reaction throughout the WNBA? Let's break down the narrative, the reported reactions, and what this could potentially mean for the future. The reported announcement is being described as much more than an ordinary sponsorship. If the details are eventually confirmed, the partnership could represent another major step in how female athletes are viewed by global luxury brands. The reaction is already dividing basketball fans, with some viewing the possibility as an incredible achievement for Clark and women's sports, while others are questioning whether the reported numbers have been exaggerated online. Reports claim Ferrari could be working with Clark through a broader global ambassador relationship rather than a simple one-time appearance or social media promotion. Some versions of the story have described possibilities involving clothing campaigns, Formula One paddock appearances, and even a potential custom design collaboration. That would be a significant development, because Ferrari is one of the most recognizable luxury brands in the world. A partnership with an athlete from a North American team sport would immediately attract attention, particularly because Clark's commercial profile has grown so rapidly. According to claims circulating around the story, Clark's representatives were focused on finding a brand partnership that matched her values rather than simply chasing the largest possible paycheck. Some reports even suggest that Ferrari approached Clark's side first. If true, that detail would be especially important because it would suggest that Clark's growing influence is attracting brands at the highest level rather than her simply pursuing every major endorsement opportunity available. There have also been attempts to connect the rumored partnership to previous appearances involving Clark and Ferrari-related figures. Some fans pointed to photographs and events where Clark appeared around Ferrari executives or wore luxury Italian fashion. At the time, those moments seemed completely ordinary. Now, however, fans are revisiting them and wondering whether discussions between the two sides may have already been happening behind the scenes. That brings us to Sophie Cunningham, whose reported reaction has become another major part of the conversation. A short video allegedly shared by Cunningham showed her speaking positively about Clark and expressing genuine happiness for her success. The message was brief, but fans immediately began analyzing every detail of the moment: the pause, the smile, the head shake. Some viewers interpreted those gestures as evidence that Cunningham was genuinely proud of Clark's progress and believed Clark's success could benefit the entire league. That interpretation is especially interesting because Cunningham has often been portrayed as a controversial figure in conversations surrounding Clark. Over the past couple of seasons, some fans have attempted to frame the relationship between the two players as a rivalry or conflict, but if Cunningham's reported comments were genuine, they would present a much different picture. The broader point is simple. When one player succeeds at an extraordinary level, other athletes can benefit from the increased attention directed toward their sport. A rising tide can potentially lift other boats. However, not everyone has viewed the situation from exactly the same angle. Some analysts have reportedly praised the potential partnership because of what it could mean for visibility, while also pointing out that there is a major difference between one player receiving enormous global attention and the rest of the league competing for more traditional sponsorship opportunities. That is a legitimate conversation. Supporting Clark does not mean ignoring the broader economic differences within women's basketball. A global luxury brand choosing one athlete can simultaneously be great for that athlete and reveal how much commercial value can become concentrated around a single superstar. The WNBA has also been mentioned in the discussion, with league leadership praising the broader growth of women's sports. But fans have closely examined how much individual attention is being given to Clark compared with the league as an institution. That distinction matters, because the real story may not simply be the Ferrari partnership itself. It could be what the reported partnership says about where commercial power currently sits in women's basketball. If a major multinational company chooses to work directly with CaitlinClark instead of primarily partnering with the league, that demonstrates how valuable an individual athlete's personal brand can become. And that has larger implications. Think about television negotiations. The league has to demonstrate its collective value when negotiating with networks and media companies. But if individual players can independently attract enormous audiences and major global brands, their personal commercial value becomes an increasingly important part of the equation. This is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it could be an enormous opportunity. The NBA has experienced something similar throughout its history. Players such as Michael Jordan became global commercial brands far beyond the basketball court, while other stars continued developing their own businesses and endorsements. The difference today is the scale of attention surrounding Clark and the speed at which her brand has grown. She is not simply becoming a successful basketball player. She is becoming a recognizable sports personality whose influence extends into fashion, business, entertainment, and global culture. That creates opportunities for other players as well. AjaWilson is an excellent example. Wilson has established herself as one of the most dominant and respected players in women's basketball. Her accomplishments on the court have already made her one of the league's biggest stars, and her own brand continues to grow. That is why turning every major endorsement story into a Clark versus Wilson rivalry misses the bigger picture. The success of one superstar can help create more interest in the entire sport. If Ferrari or another global luxury company decides to invest heavily in women's basketball through Clark, other companies may begin looking more closely at the league's entire talent pool. That could eventually create more endorsement opportunities for Wilson, Cunningham, and many other players. There is also a larger issue surrounding the reported $150 million figure. This number should be treated carefully until the precise terms of any agreement are officially confirmed by Ferrari or another reliable source. In the current social media environment, an estimate can quickly become a headline, and a headline can quickly be repeated as though it were an established fact. That is why separating confirmed information from online speculation is essential. Even if the $150 million figure ultimately turns out to be inaccurate, the broader story remains significant. CaitlinClark has become one of the most commercially recognizable athletes in basketball. Her appearances generate attention. Her interviews generate attention. Her endorsements generate attention. And even rumors involving her can generate massive discussion. That level of visibility is difficult to ignore. It also explains why fans are so interested in AjaWilson's reaction. Wilson represents another side of the WNBA's growing superstar class. Her dominance, championships, individual accomplishments, and reputation have already made her one of the central figures in women's basketball. Rather than viewing the growth of Clark as a threat to Wilson, fans could view both players as evidence that the league now has multiple athletes capable of attracting major attention. The same can be said for Sophie Cunningham and other players developing their own identities. The more recognizable names women's basketball creates, the easier it becomes for companies to see the commercial potential of the entire sport. That may ultimately be the most important part of this story. A massive endorsement deal involving Clark would not necessarily mean Clark is taking attention away from everyone else. It could mean the ceiling for women's sports marketing is becoming much higher. Of course, fans will continue debating the rumored deal and what it means. Some will see it as one of the biggest endorsement developments in women's basketball history. Others will wait for official confirmation before believing the 150 million number. Both reactions are understandable. The important thing is to distinguish what has actually been confirmed from what is still being discussed online. And then there is the question of where AjaWilson fits into this changing landscape. Wilson has already proven that she can command attention through her performance and accomplishments. Clark has brought an entirely different level of mainstream visibility and commercial interest. If both continue growing their brands, women's basketball could benefit from having multiple superstar athletes capable of attracting global companies. That is a much bigger story than any rivalry. It is about the evolution of the sport. It is about women's basketball becoming increasingly attractive to companies that previously paid little attention to it. It is about athletes having more power to build individual brands. And it is about the possibility that the next generation of WNBA stars could have opportunities that were difficult to imagine only a few years ago. So now the question goes to you. Would you consider the alleged Ferrari partnership and reported $150 million figure one of the biggest endorsement stories in women's basketball if the details are officially confirmed? Do you believe a partnership of that scale could create more opportunities for other WNBA players? And what do you think about CaitlinClark's growing commercial profile compared with established superstars like AjaWilson? Let us know what you think in the comments. If you believe Clark is bringing an entirely new audience to women's basketball, put Clark in the comments. And if you believe the league's other stars deserve even more attention and investment as the WNBA continues expanding, tell us who you think should be next. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next major story involving CaitlinClark, the WNBA, and the athletes shaping the future of women's basketball. Because while this particular story revolves around one alleged Ferrari partnership, the bigger conversation is about where women's basketball is heading. The audience is growing. The attention is growing. The opportunities are growing. And whether the Ferrari story ultimately becomes a confirmed landmark agreement or simply another example of how quickly online rumors can spread, the discussion itself shows just how powerful the spotlight on women's basketball has become. CaitlinClark is at the center of that conversation, but she is not the only athlete who stands to benefit. AjaWilson has already established her place among the sport's elite. Sophie Cunningham has built her own recognizable personality and following, and countless other players are continuing to develop their own identities and connections with fans around the world. That is why this moment matters. The future of women's basketball may not be defined by one player, one brand, or one endorsement. It could be defined by an entire generation of athletes discovering just how valuable their voices, performances, and personal brands can become. So stay connected, keep the conversation going, and most importantly, continue supporting the sport and the players helping move it forward. This is the Clark Update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.